Hello, everybody. Hi, everyone. Hey, Liv, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Logging in from London, sunny-ish today.
Yeah, I'm in London too. I'm in the office. I think we were promised better weather. So hoping it improves a bit throughout the day. But
Oh dear. Yeah, hopefully it's going to get better. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join in and log in. For those who are already with us, just take up a cup of tea, have some water, maybe a mid-morning little snack. And we will start very shortly. And perhaps as well, if you could let us know where you're logging in from this morning, that would be great. Oh, I can see somebody logging from York.
York, lovely.
Cambridge. Ooh. Essex. Oh, Barcelona. Angelina, I want to be with you right now. Stockholm. Ooh, it's a worldwide webinar today.
So
The
it seems like
Netherlands.
it's sunny in other places, just maybe not London.
But London, Lagos. Wow, this is a lot of different countries that we have. Scotland, Sweden.
Wow.
Well, welcome everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes. We already have quite a few of you, so thank you really much for joining us this morning. We are going to talk about how to accelerate growth by onboarding and upskilling at speed, but just giving a few more seconds before we all start. For the ones of you who are already here, perhaps a little intro. So this session will be really informative, actionable, and we really want it to be as interactive as possible. So keep the chat going, ask as many questions as you like, and we will kind of be taking questions. Emma, yes, the session is currently being recorded, so that will be obviously available for all of you at the end. Make sure you fire over your thoughts, your tips as well, and any questions throughout this session. So now that it's 2 minutes past 11, let's kick off. I'm just going to change my slide. There we go, so that it should change. Yes, there we go. So perhaps we should start with a quick introduction round. Why are Liv and I here today to talk about onboarding and upskilling? Well, firstly, just a bit on me. I'm Lulu and I work at HowNow, which for those of you that don't know us, we are a learning platform that has everything you need to bring relevant skills to employees in the flow of work. And as the head of customer success, I'm talking to hundreds of people and L&D leaders, just like you. Some of you I already know as well, I can see from the chat. And through the implementation and kind of delivery of initiatives and your programs designed to help fast growing companies on board and upskill people at speed, I'm here to support. A little bit perhaps also around the common challenges I hear from talking to companies like Investec or Marshmallow. Our challenges like number one, I would say, staying compliant is one thing that I hear pretty much every day working with people, leaders. But also the second main one would be finding the time and the tools also to be able to deliver kind of a 5-star onboarding experience whilst rapidly growing and hiring people. So that's kind of the second main one. And perhaps the third that I also hear quite often is to be able to get people to engage with your training, to ramp up and excel really quickly. So I would say these are the main 3 challenges I hear most every day. If that resonates with you, great, you're in the best possible webinar for today. So I'm going to draw from my experience of working with these type of fast-growing companies to tell you a little bit more around what mistakes to avoid, but also how to fast track for your success. So that's a bit about me. Now I'm going to let it to you, Liv, to introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Lulu. So hi, everyone. I'm Olivia or Liv from HiBob. So HiBob is a HRIS, and you'll learn a little bit more about later, but it's really focused on putting the employee first. I've been at Bob for a number of years now. I'm a solution engineer, so I've worked closely with existing clients, but also with new prospects to understand their challenges, but also getting them set up on the system. And something that I've taken a great interest in is how we can redefine the onboarding experience. So how companies who are going through really fast growth globally, I know we've got people from all over on this call, but how we grow at speed, particularly when we've got a remote workforce. And the reason kind of why we've come together is the challenges that I'm seeing are pretty similar to the ones that Lulu has mentioned. So remaining compliant when operating in multiple countries, and also being able to deliver a personalized onboarding experience without having a massive drain on resources, but also keeping your new hires engaged. And we'll speak a lot about this today, about how you can keep them engaged, at what points you need to reach out to them, but really how are you selling your business in those first few months of their employment. So super excited to kind of go through some of the findings that we found. Keep an eye on the chat for any questions that come through as we go as well.
Yeah, and I think actually we had a really good question from Talent Gateway around, so both of us listed that one of the common challenges are staying compliant, and Talent Gateway wanted to understand a little bit more. So Liv, do you want to get that to answer this question? What does it mean in terms of staying compliant?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the HRIS, obviously when you're onboarding new employees, lots of data that you need to collect from them, and that's going to be really different depending on what country they're in. What you collect in the UK is different to Germany, is different to India, is different to the US. So how can we make sure that we're remaining compliant with what we can ask employees, what we need to collect from them? When we're managing this for multiple countries, and it may just be one centralized HR team. So kind of automating these functions to make sure that you're in line with those local rules.
Yeah, and from a learning perspective, it would be obviously any company has at any given time to make sure that this they share training with their workforce to make sure that people are compliant and are aware of, certain compliance elements such as GDPR, cybersecurity training, etc. So that's, I guess, what we mean. And there are some companies that are heavily audited to make sure that they keep their workforce compliant at all times. So I hope that answered your question, Talent Gateway. Right, so I'm going to move on just to make sure that you are in safe hand and tell you a little bit more about HiBob and HowNow. And so let's start with HowNow. I'm the next one, so I'll start with HowNow platform. We are a learning platform that has everything you need to bring relevant learning, skills, and knowledge to every single employee in the flow of work, but also track all of your L&D, so learning and development, in one place. So if you have to remember one thing about HowNow, one sentence, which I probably say at least 3 or 4 times a day, it would be that we deliver the right content at the right time in the right place. So that means that the result of that is that we are able to deliver 5 times higher engagement than a traditional learning management system, LMS, to build the skills that you need. We also, so I think I mentioned a few, you would also see on the slide a couple more, but we work with leading companies such as RDoc, Marshmallow, Andaris, or even Operatics, who integrate with HiBob from HowNow to save a lot of time automating their onboarding journey, or even training, specific trainings to save time and money, because that means that then the L&D or people operations are able to really focus on the things that matter. So this is us in a nutshell. I'm gonna let you, Liv, to introduce Bob.
Great, thanks, Lily. So Bob was founded to modernize HR tech, and it's an intuitive, data-driven platform. When our founder created Bob, we weren't just thinking of the HR team at mind. Some of you may have used some old legacy systems which are really clunky and difficult to use. When we were building Bob, we wanted it to be intuitive. So for the HR teams, we wanted it to be easy for them to use and to maintain themselves. For managers, we wanted them to have easy access to insights and allow them to be empowered to lead more effectively. But also for the employees to be able to connect with each other and be able to grow with the business and have visibility over this. What we didn't want is just a platform that you log into when you book time off and you forget about until your next holiday. Now, the journey that we've been on has been very fast. So Bob was founded in 2015. I actually joined Bob in 2020, so becoming one of the long timers, because in that time we've grown massively. We're now over 800 employees across London, Amsterdam, Tel Aviv, New York, Berlin, and Lisbon currently. So some of you might be dialing in from those locations. We have 3,500 companies we're working with, and particularly those with a global reach. So we're in over 100 countries. And then final stat to throw at you is we have raised over 300 million in investor funding over 8 rounds. But I think kind of what hopefully you'll see throughout this webinar and maybe on these images we've shown here is both of these platforms are really UI focused to have a really great experience for both your employees, but for yourselves as the admins as well.
Thank you so much. So basically what we're saying together is that together, HowNow and Bob, we're a powerhouse for modern people leaders to accelerate growth. So later we will talk a little bit more about this. But you might wonder, am I in the right place? Well, why are you here, right? So you are definitely in the right place if 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we have seen is that currently people teams are definitely in a big war with fluctuating business demands, from hyper scaling their headcounts or even reducing their cost to write, on any economic downturns. I know some of you might have experienced this, but also to plug skill gaps where there is a war out there on, talent hire. So if any of these problem statements that are on the screen at the moment resonate with you, you're definitely in the right place. Also, perhaps put in the comment which ones of these statements kind of resonates the most with you. That would be great to also understand. So first of all, your resources might be stretched. I can see some people already saying 2 and 3. So second one being onboarding, offboarding, hiring freezing, everything in between. You probably are struggling with a very fast changing business environment. Perhaps you're also filling your calendar with very repetitive tasks that kind of clog your calendar. Or you might also have a lot of employee complaining. Unfortunately, that might also be the truth, and people leaving for different companies because of the lack of development opportunities in their business. So if any of these sound familiar, fasten your seatbelt, because Liv and I, we're going to be giving you some tools and strategy to talk about that. So I'm just going to move to the onboarding and upskilling and let Liv kind of go through that bit.
Right. So to kick this off, we're gonna look at onboarding and upskilling at speed. But why do we care and why now? And this kind of echoes what Lulu's just gone through. A lot of the pains I can see you in the chat are going through yourselves. But I want to kind of take us back to, we've all been a new joiner at some point. We've all had that first day of work come, and I'd like to think we've all felt those nerves, you know, what do I wear? Who do I say hi to when I get into the office? What's the lunch situation? And hopefully for you all, you've all gone through that feeling of relief when, whether it's your manager, whether it's who you met through the interview process, comes and says hi, introduces you to some people, shows you the coffee machine, and settles you in. And I think it's really important to emphasize here that onboarding isn't just filling out a form or checking some boxes. It's an experience. And the feeling that experience gives people stays with them throughout their time at your company. Now, given the economic environment, very large focus on not wasting resources. So we've identified these kind of 3 themes to ensure that as a business, you're as efficient as possible. And as you can see in this image, the process that overlaps them all is onboarding. So productivity. This isn't just for you as a HR function or talent teams. This is also of the new employee. How quickly can you get them up and running? Those first few weeks of their employment, what can you be doing there to actually make them as productive as possible going forward? And as well for that team who's supporting their onboarding. Now, as we know, bad onboarding experience can often result in people leaving in their first few months. And this turnover obviously is going to have a direct impact on costs, but also your recruitment team, your HR team, your finance team, all those people who have put in that time to getting those people set up, they're going to have to go back through that process again. And finally, it's the impact on the team, the employee satisfaction. We have your new joiner, and as we know, we want them to be happy. We want them to tell their friends about what an amazing new company they've joined. But also the drainage that constantly having to onboard new hires because the turnover is really high, or even having really manual processes is going to have a strain on the rest of the team. So we really want to make sure that you're building that morale and that environment from the get-go, to have happy employees who are going to be more productive and are going to stay with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that you mentioned that onboarding is an experience, and it's so true. It's an experience. It's I hear also a journey, and this is why it should be continuous. So yeah, from our side, what is essential and critical to onboarding new employees, new starters, is to really get them up to speed and do so as quickly as possible. So this is important now for obviously businesses to more than ever to try and use these 4 because of these 4 key reasons. So if we look at it, the first one, obviously embedding learning into your onboarding process, your onboarding experience or journey, as we just mentioned, will definitely help you to develop core competency in your new starters early on. So that means that you can prepare your new hires for their role by helping them develop some of their core competencies within the very first 30 days of joining your business. So this can include anything that they need to master to excel in their role. So for example, it could be anything from, if you're a software, from product knowledge, or perhaps it could be messaging, branding, perhaps also how to use different brands, or how to use your tools. We don't think about this, but actually, there might be hundreds of tools that you use internally that people need to learn on their first few weeks or few months of being here, because they didn't have access to those tools. So that is also very important to make it as smooth as possible, as well as, of course, bringing the soft skills and these kind of cross-functional team relationships. As you said before, who do I talk to on my first day? So this is important to kind of explain the context of your business on a high level and kind of go deeper and deeper. So what you can do there is make a plan for what your new hires should know now and what they can also learn later on in their journey, so that you can get them up to speed really quickly, but without overwhelming them. Because that's another thing we hear often is, where do I start? There is so much, I don't know where to start. What do I have to focus on? So it's making sure that you really clearly lay out what is important and what is nice to do. The second part is around, there is a little statistic around new hires actually only reach a 25% productivity rate in their first month on the job. And that could take a new hire, my H's in French sometimes get gone missing. New hires up to 8 months to reach their peak performance potential. So a longer employee onboarding program is required, because it will also allow this ongoing culture assimilation with activities, and also creating this continuous learning opportunity to reinforce important skills. Again, a lot of things that I hear from customers and their experience and their employees' feedback is that, yeah, we had loads of training at the start, but then it kind of fell. We didn't have anything else. So we can't assume, an L&D professionals, HR professionals, that it's because you share an information once that it's retained. So it's also very important to keep continue to share this kind of material and check how they can apply it. The third, sorry.
Jump in, because I think that ties quite nicely to Sam's question about drip feeding the onboarding tasks over a time period. So I know I definitely think that you should. It's not everything all in 1 month, but I think that speaks quite nicely to what Lulu was just referring to there, as the information doesn't always go in first time.
Yeah, for sure, Sam. And also, I think it's, we often see, one of the mistakes that I've seen before is that there is a massive focus on the first 2 weeks or the first month, or even, up to probation, say. But then there is nothing more that is done. And I think it should definitely be, a wider conversation amongst onboarding teams to make sure that it's not because you're past probation that you know everything on the role. You have to keep learning, and it's, making sure that we can share this material, or it's easy to go back to the material that was shared during the onboarding phase, so that I can keep reiterating, keep getting up the ladder of my skill on specific items. So yeah, definitely 100% drip feeding. I'm all for it. And I'm sure that a lot of people agree on this goal as well. So then if we also think back to the statistic that we talked about a little bit earlier, that there is about 78% of employees that say that there is a lack of growth opportunities, and this is one of the reasons to leaving, for them from leaving. That's why investing in this learning, in a culture of continuous learning, is really key to, one, retain your talents and also attract new ones. So that's something to think about for you. Finally, making sure that your employees are able to outlearn the competition. Also something to bear in mind. Of course, speed of learning is going to enable you to build this agile workforce that will be able to innovate at speed and know more than your competition, whether that's by I don't know, adopting, for example, new technology. So for example, AI, or quickly pivoting approach in times of uncertainty. And if you have something to support them, they will be able to make these quick decisions and have more autonomy. So this kind of explains why the importance of learning at speed in kind of 4 main sections. And now we are go through the quiz, my favorite time. So I think, Liv, you're going to be the quiz master for today.
Yes, I am. If you can just pop in the letter that you think is the correct answer into the chat, and then we'll reveal the answers. So to start us off, what percentage of employees said they would leave a job after a poor onboarding experience?
Ding, 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 ding.
Looks like B is winning in the chat.
Tan, tan, tan.
Well done, everyone who said B. It's 28%.
Very good.
People surprised. Be keen to hear what people think about some of these answers as well.
It is pretty high, to be fair.
So, question number 2. What percentage does productivity increase by after a great onboarding experience?
Lots of A's.
Need the countdown clock.
Some A's, but there is no B's. No B's at all.
No, lots of A's and C's.
Bam, bam, bam.
72%. So I think there we can see how important that this really is.
Well done for all of you.
Okay.
Final question.
What percentage of employees cite a lack of growth opportunities as their reason for leaving their company?
I mean, if you don't know this, I will take it very personally because I just said it. I'm glad to see most people were listening. And yes,
it's not a test, I promise.
Well done, everybody. So that leads us, I'm just going to move. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There you go. So well done, everybody. It was always the highest number, Richard. You got it. So pretty, pretty impressive for everyone who got the right responses. And now if we think back to what Liv said earlier about the 3 core pillars of, great onboarding strategy around employee satisfaction, retention, productivity, we've also identified 6 steps that are really essential to every onboarding strategies. So that will hopefully give you a good framework to kind of map out key considerations for your different tools and programs, just to ensure that your onboarding is really cohesive and hits all of the main goals and objectives that you have. So as you can see, pre-board, welcome, meet, learn, prepare, and ramp. So let's go through all of these steps a little bit more in details with tips and tricks on how to get started. And again, if you can just, as we go along, say perhaps how you've done specific steps in your organization and what you've seen has worked, or perhaps learn from mistake, please put it on the discussion.
So step 1, pre-boarding. I think a common misconception is that the onboarding process starts on the start date. We like to think it starts with the offer. Actually, 28% of new hires back out of job offers before the start date. So we really encourage our customers to be engaging with that employee from that offer accepted. And this could be anything from regular emails throughout their notice period, letting them know that you're excited for them to join, But I think it's really nice when you can then start to mix it up. Maybe you're sharing a swag bag with company t-shirts and pens, maybe sending a social media pack, how to announce on LinkedIn. But I really think, particularly for those who've got those long 3 to 6 month notice periods, it's those regular check-ins with their future manager, and that's going to give them the insights into what working for your company is going to look like, and also keep them in the loop. So when they join, they know what's been going on, as opposed to what you told them 6 months ago in your interview. Is anyone, I want to see you filling up the chat with any cool ideas that you do that have worked really well, maybe ones that I've not mentioned or thought of. I'll move on to number 2, and I'll keep an eye to see if any come through. Location guides. So when the employee start dates come around, it's really important to give them that big warm welcome, especially as it may be that they're in the office, but half of the company's still at home. It may be that they're sat on their own out in another country when you're entering new regions. We want everyone to feel the same warm welcome. And it's quite easy for people to fall through the cracks if someone doesn't log on to Slack one day to miss that a new joiner has come. What we do at Bob is we ask all of our new joiners to write a little bit of an about me. I've worked with companies who like to do 2 truths and a lie, and we'll do a shout out. So that could be via your HRIS or your intranet, using a communication tool, but just to really introduce that employee to the company, not just Olivia, the new sales engineer. And we want people to feel connected, these human connections. So being able to input what your hobbies are, what your interests are, what you like to do at the weekend. So people can really connect with who's their type of person as well. But I think these daily check-ins are also really important as well. So whether that's with their manager or another employee, being able to have that regular communication. 72% of employees said that the one-on-one time with their manager was the most important part of hitting the ground running at a new company. And again, thinking back to when we've joined companies, I've definitely felt that awkwardness of, I don't want to be bothering my manager. So really having those automated is a really great way to make sure that everyone's still engaged. I can see some really good ideas coming through the chat as well. Number 3 is showcasing your people and culture. This kind of ties into that welcome of, we're talking about people, not just job roles. So we're going to personalize welcome videos. Maybe we're introducing the people that are relevant to them in that role. The people they're going to be working closely with, not just the people sat on their bank of desks. I don't think I need to explain the buddy program. I think a lot of companies do it and it works very well. I know I've always enjoyed being a buddy as well. But most importantly is seeking feedback. The only way that you're going to improve your onboarding experience for employees is to keep asking them how they found it. So whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whether it's something that's a little bit more organic, but really making sure that for every new joiner, you're letting them have their say on how they found that experience.
Yeah, and something just came to my head as well. So around the step number 2 on how to welcome people to the team, I've seen some great examples of customers using as well, HowNow, their learning platform, to create knowledge about their people. So they would make a task for every new joiner to kind of share another nugget of information with the rest of the organization, on a professional level as well on a personal level, just so that they can understand, they can share pictures of, what they've done before. So that is, making it as personal as possible so that people can feel comfortable very quickly. And obviously that creates a lot of questions and comments on the nugget. So I've seen that working really well as well to welcome people to the team and introduce them. So then we move on to the step number 4, which is learning. of course, a core part of any onboarding experience, so we talked a little bit about it earlier in the webinar, should be getting the new starter compliance and up to date, with the need to know about their role and their product and your organization. So here you really need to consider how you can get information to your employees in a way that is digestible. So we talked about drip feeding a little bit earlier as well, but also that is easy to find at the moment of needs. So for example, common tools used across organization are tools like Notion or Google Drive, HowNow. So using HowNow, for example, you can really automate the relevant information and drip feed that information. So for example, from day 1 to 3, you can share your company information, so org charts, if you haven't already shared them pre-boarding. And then week after that, so day 4 to 9, for example, just giving examples here, but you could send anything from product and compliance training after that, so that you really drip feed all of that. We talked a little bit about expectation from a pre-boarding perspective, but also a step 5 for any onboarding program is to make sure that you set expectation. It's really your job as people leads to guide your employees in the right direction. So making sure you put enough time into setting very clear guidelines and expectations for them, because it will really reduce the amount of time that they get ramped up. And also it will avoid them having to do any rework or tweak and amend their approach in the future. So that's super important for avoiding any misconceptions around what they do. So what you really want to try and do everything you can to make sure your employees get it done correctly the first time around. Perhaps from your end, if you could share how you set up expectation for your employees, that would be really good to hear from all of you today. But yes, you can, of course, reinforce what is required and ensure that everyone is on the same page by, so I've seen some customers hosting weekly or monthly check-ins, as you were telling earlier, Liv, but also having, overall annual assessments, again, that you can make sure you automate so you don't have to do all of the legwork. So for instance, to ensure that your new hire is comfortable and finding their way, you can, ask them to do a presentation at the end of the first day or the first week, just to, nothing too stressful, nothing too demanding, but just to make them feel part of it already very early on. Because again, some of the feedback from employees is that they have so much to read and they want to get stuck in. But too often they can't get stuck in because they have all of this material to read through and they can't actually do the thing. So perhaps making them do the thing early on so that they can get comfortable with the way to speak about things. And finally, least, but definitely not last, ramp up for success. So after the first 14 to 30 days, how do you make sure to continue to onboard your new employees? The reality is, as we said earlier, takes up to about 8 months for a new starter to reach full productivity. So how can you try and really shorten this time to productivity? Well, again, using HowNow, you can really create learning pathways, learning journeys based on very specific triggers, like their roles, like the time they've been in the company, using some fields from HiBob, where they are in their journey. So they could be senior. So you could then start sharing for a very specific audience, personalized, for example, manager training, to make sure that the onboarding continues even after probation, sorry. So these are automatically, these triggers that I was just discussing are automatically done based on all of the data on the HRIS So HRIS, I saw somebody ask what it is earlier. So it's your HR system, like Bob, and all of that learning is hosted on a central platform and also being shared in the flow of work. So what does it look like, would you ask? It's basically meaning that you can log in, so you can see some of the designs here. You can log in to the app by searching specific and relevant training content. And if the employee is intentionally seeking for training, then they would be able to do so directly from the app. But they can also, and this is where it gets really powerful, and when we were talking about the right time, the right place, they can also access this training for the tools that they use every single day. So for example, some of you might already be aware, but we all use, tools like HubSpot or Salesforce or Zendesk or Slack Teams, Google, etc. We all use that. So we are not asking your learners to switch context. They can already get access to the content right where they work. And by having also this integrated journey, you can really make sure that your employees have the right information at the right time so that they get ramped up very quickly. And I saw in the comment earlier, somebody said, I think it was Pauline, first impression is really important. Yes, so that they feel supported throughout their journey. And that is something to make sure that you don't forget about. I'm just going to take a sip of water, switch my slide, and continue.
And just having a little look at the comments, and it's great to see that a lot of you have, incorporated these check-ins as part of, the first few months, particularly Kate, where you've said about setting goals and actions. I think having these milestones to work towards, whether it's a first week, a first month, or ongoing throughout their development, I think that's really important to make sure that employees are staying engaged. So it's great to see.
Yeah, so important. And if we know that speed of getting your new starter ramped up quickly is essential, how can we empower our people to do that efficiently and effectively? So it's not just about completing learning, but it's the speed at which they can learn. And also, we were talking about it a bit earlier, but how they can apply what they learn in their role. And to do that, we really need to think and change the way that we learn in our organizations. So we've worked with over 10,000 teams to really identify 3 main core pillars for any successful learning strategy. And that's what we were talking earlier about: right content, right time, right place. People, they really want to learn in the flow of work. They want to be able to have access to the resources on demand, because that's how we are already used to learning, if anything. And they want to be able to translate that to real life, to job situation, so that they don't have to switch context. So the relevant learning, asking most teams why they aren't learning actually, and they will probably tell you that it's, I don't have time. How many times have you all heard, oh, sorry, I really haven't had time, calendar too busy, other priorities, right? So yeah, of course, that is true. It is part of it. However, people would make time if they thought and they saw that it was important. So there is a slight mindset change to have to do here. Then if we look at the right time, again, people need to be in the right mindset to work, but to learn, right? So you can't really force learning on them. They have to see, they have to be able to access it easily to therefore be able to consume it. And then finally, the right time, the right place. Again, you shouldn't try to force people to come to a channel or a folder that is in a folder that you don't have a password to, that you need to request access, that somebody is not. So, right, you can see how that, again, the right place, it needs to be easy. Learning should exist in all of the channels that your people are already operating with. Why are we trying to remove them from there? when it's already a habit, right? So of course they can have access to, they are reading already, they're chatting, they're working. So that's where you need to be. That's where you need to reach them. And so if a company, for example, uses Slack, I will use that because it's so common across industry, or MS Team, that most companies use as a communication tool, well, that can most likely also be your learning tool, or at least your medium to share your learning. And this way, again, you don't have to switch environment, and you can get as many people as possible because they're already there, right? So these are kind of the summary of our 3 pillars: right time, right training, right places. If by the end of this webinar, you don't remember that sentence, I don't know, we've done something wrong, Liv.
Yeah, I definitely will remember at least, Lulu. So we've spoken a lot about different tools, different processes that you may want to put into place to have a successful onboarding and upskilling. But that could potentially result in more work for you, and that's what we don't want. So how are we going to deliver some of these HR processes at speed? And we want you to automate where you can. So a lot of HRISs, including Bob, have open APIs. So you can really leverage these to start connecting with some of your existing tools. In this day and age, I really don't think there is an excuse for data duplication. We want everything to be feeding into each other. There is obviously also the route to go down Zapier to aid you in integrating this with your other tools. These tools can be anything from an ATS to, as Lulu said, Slack, making sure people can book time off in Slack, can answer requests in Slack or Teams, anything up to their LMS. And the reason why we're here today is you can use HowNow and Bob's integration. So Bob has a native integration with HowNow to fix that problem exactly. We don't want you going into multiple systems, setting up multiple people. We want, if someone gets promoted to a people manager, as Lulu said, it will auto assign what training they need to do to upskill them there.
I need to switch the slide. Sorry, I was reading all the comments.
So how does this work in Bob? So there's a few different features that you can leverage to really streamline this process. And the first is flows. Now, this can be anything from getting your new joiners data from an ATS, but also in that onboarding process that we've spoken about. Something that we enable you to do is to automate the data that they need to complete, any forms they need to sign or read, and also uploading a photo of themselves so that the new team can see the face that they're expecting to meet. But by having these automated flows, it means that your HR team or your talent teams don't have to be thinking of, what do I need to ask this person to collect? What do I need to email them and ask for? It's all going to be automated depending on where they're based, what kind of employee they are, what department they're joining, to really give them that personalized experience without a strain on your resources. And the next step of this is tasks. So this is the wider process. This is if we're still talking about onboarding, this is who needs to order their laptop, who needs to set up their desk. Are you taking them out for lunch? So it can be anything from functional tasks to tasks that relate to your culture. Do you want to remind people on their team that they've got a new team member joining? All of these automated actions that are going to shoot out, which you don't need to touch. And this extends past onboarding. You'll see here we have training tasks. We have what happens if you get promoted, what happens if you're going on parental leave. But as part of these task lists, it's not just reminders. It can be anything from automating a form to be signed to automating feedback, or one-on-one meetings. So we've spoke a lot about those check-ins that you might be having with your manager when you first join or when you're upskilling. We can automate these one-on-ones to go out at dedicated points of time with dedicated agendas, so that you know that you're getting a consistent approach across the whole business. But also, most importantly, what we're here today for is flagging parts in the life cycle where training may be required. And that's where Bob and HowNow can really complement each other nicely.
Thanks so much, Livia. Really helpful to see how it actually looks as well on the HiBob side. And so once you've got all of these new starters set up on HiBob, there's 3 key ways that HowNow, we like 3s. For some reason, all of our slides have been on 3s today. So 3 ways that HowNow can really help you automate this onboarding process. So the first one you can see is kind of the curated learning pathways to make sure that you can bring together internal training with external expertise to create very specific and personalized learning journeys. So they can be anything from mandatory compliance content. We also talked earlier about product training, tool training, but also it could be anything for, new managers, soft skills type training. And it's all designed to be able to track, assess. I think I saw a question earlier about, or a comment about the fact that you have dashboards. So you can really track, assess, and upskill your employees. So you have visibility on all of that. The second aspect is, and we touched on that earlier already, but just to reiterate, is learning in HowNow will be completely automatically triggered so that you can deliver training at speed and at scale. You don't have to go back every time you have a new starter to reassign that user and forget at least 3 of the most important content that this person has to take. No, that won't happen because you already set it up from the get-go and it's automatic. So for example, learning pathways can be triggered automatically once, say, you have a new employee added onto Bob, and again, enabling you to drip feed that relevant content in a timely manner in their first, say, 30, 60, 90 days, and also beyond, because it's continuous. And finally, once you have your learning pathways, you have your automation set up, how do you ensure that people absorb the learning to ramp up at speed? So we've already touched on it. Some of you might already be able to respond, but it's in our HowNow mission to make learning a part of every day at work by ensuring that these learning opportunities are accessible from everywhere, wherever your people work. So we've already mentioned, so for example, on the slide, you can see our extension. People might be using HubSpot as on the little GIF you see, or Salesloft, or any other type of software that has web app. Oops, sorry, there's a bit of background noise just all of a sudden. But our HowNow browser extension can pull through relevant resources, relevant content, as you can see on the screen, to really train your employee as they go, as they work, as they need help and support. So for example, here, how to, you might be able to be on HubSpot, you might actually not remember how to do something specific, like, I don't know, integrating HubSpot with your inbox, or how to create a new deal opportunity. Well, if you upload that content and select the HowNow extension, straight away, you don't have to ask your manager, you don't have to log in somewhere else. No, you just stay where you are and you just wait for HowNow to suggest you recommendation, or you just search for the content directly from that extension. So that avoids context switching. Also, one very obvious one, it increases productivity. And also it makes people feel supported along the way. There is also a mobile app, of course. So for people who like to learn, during their commute, for example, if they don't have the time during the day, or people that are also on the field. We have a lot of customers that, are working on the field and don't necessarily have access to laptops. So that would also make sure that you can embed the knowledge sharing in any of these kind of com apps as well. We already talked about MS Team and Slack earlier. So these are the 3 ways. I am going to switch. I think your turn. You probably want to share a little bit of a quote.
Yeah, so HowNow and HiBob's automated learning pathways saves huge amount of time and ensures your people maximize their potential. And that's a quote from the head of people at Andress.
Super. She's a very nice person as well, actually. So we're now going to look at a few questions. I think I saw a few. Oh, there is a lot of comments. Very good. You guys have been super active on the chat. Let me see. So somebody asked around if we would be sharing the infographics after the call. Of course, after the session is recording, as you can see, and we'll be able to file that over. Oh, right. So what would be, I'm just reading it out loud just in case, what would be a good argument to our decision makers to use this instead of asking ChatGPT or other AI how it's done? Well, that's a great question. One of the, probably the main thing that I can answer from my side is, instead of using ChatGPT, probably you won't know the very specific of your business. So of course it can probably be, you know, overall understanding of, you know, general concepts and how to do specific things. However, it won't necessarily know the context of your business, how, you know, your culture, who to speak to in the business as well. And also there is another element, which is then you wouldn't get any data. Whereas if you store everything under one place, you have visibility on, you know, what people are learning. You also get to see feedback and how to push more content that is, you know, more specific to the needs of the business. Whereas, and if you didn't have, you know, an LXP as well as an HRS, you wouldn't be able to collect that data. You wouldn't be able to answer the needs of your people. And also it wouldn't be organized. So with, you know, with the HiBob and HowNow integration, you can of course organize and make sure that it's consistent, because one thing that one person might ask would not necessarily be the same another person would ask on ChatGPT. Again, you don't have any consistency on that. So hopefully that kind of answer your question, Serena.
We've got another one through. This one might be one for you, Lulu, too. But how would you say the longer term onboarding compares with or relates to what's ever known as everboarding?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Probably, I mean, we are with most customer we're working with, there is definitely this everboarding culture. If you're trying to install a continuous learning culture in the business, that has to happen, right? I think it's just making these steps clear. We were talking about expectations earlier. So how long is onboarding? So you have the hard onboarding and you have the middle onboarding and the soft onboarding. So I guess this is kind of up to you to decide, you know, what you feel comfortable, what's your employee life journey as well, from, you know, the time they join to when they get promoted to when they need to excel at something. So I guess it would be just, yeah, perhaps thinking about your induction. Oh yeah, Laura, you're taking it out of my mouth. The induction part phase, and then an onboarding kind of longer term journey as well. So induction would be the very beginning probably, and then keep upskilling your people as they navigate in the organization. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and I think to mirror that as well, I think what's really important to emphasize is those life cycle events that happen in the employee's journey. You know, we've spoke about promotions, moving into management as well. So whether it's an everboarding of upskilling or whether it is a longer term onboarding and then you move into more life cycle based, I think it's really specific to your business and what you think employees are going to engage with the most as well. I can see Laura's actually asked any suggestions on alternative names to onboarding and induction. And actually, I love Sabrina's answer of welcome journey. I'm not sure I can do much better than that. Lulu, have you got any other ideas? I think
I have a brain freeze. I've definitely seen some really creative ones, but usually what our customers do, so what we always suggest is that when starting working with us, customer create a learning identity, so a learning brand. And most of the time that kind of goes beyond just having, a name for your academy or for your learning platform. It also kind of goes beyond that. So, different stages of your employee cycle. And so usually what they do is that they use the main learning brand and kind of use that for, the different steps within the user's kind of journey.
Yeah.
So for example, we had a customer made, like, it was very universe specific, their theme of their platform. And so any kind of steps were missions, and all of the missions, went through, like, first of all, there was an onboarding mission. And so they used kind of very clever ways and play on words to use that. Yeah, acceleration is a great word as well.
Yeah, I think it's fun when it relates to your business as well. I've worked with customers who it was all centered around the idea of all their employees being ninjas. And it kind of gamified it, made it a little bit more fun as well, rather than onboarding. But yeah, I like acceleration as well.
Yeah. Great stuff. Any other questions or even comments? I see that lots of you have already responded the poll as well that came through. Any final questions, anyone? All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We will send the recording. Thank you again for all of your great comments. And we will see you soon, hopefully. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Liv. It was great presenting with you.
All right. Thanks, Lily. Bye, everyone.
See you later.